All right, Gemini, thanks for tuning in to your yearly horoscope for 2015. My name is Athan. Okay, so we've got, I want to start off actually by talking about the overall picture, the big theme, and this is the eclipses essentially with the moon. They show us the overall cycle. And when we move with the flow of the moon, with the tides, everything is nice and flowing and it works out. So this is where the overall focus is, and this is also associated with the north and south nodes as well. So very important. So let's start there. Now last year, in 2014 in October, we had the last set of eclipses. And this happened in Libra. Okay, so for you guys, that was your 5th house. So perhaps something new in terms of some of you new romance, for some of you new child, new children in the family. For some of you, a new creative project, entrepreneurship, small business, maybe something speculative, and it's not really speculative, but something in that sort of nature where it's a new creative, new creation. And whatever that is, it's leading into 2015 for you guys up until the spring time period, okay, March, April time period when we have the next set of eclipses. So for these few months, really focus on developing that, whatever that direction is, that path, and really making that that creation, whatever it is, into more of reality and cultivate it and make it into something. If it's the romance, developing it into a relationship. If it's the something creative, then developing it into perhaps your work or making it into something much larger. But in either case, focusing on that is really going to help things flow for you guys, whatever that 5th house path is. Now in March, we've got the eclipses happening in Pisces, which is your guys' 10th house. And so maybe it is something to do with making this public. If it is a creative project, making it much more widely available. The 10th house has to do with the public image, it has to do with career. So whatever that is, that's going to be where the new beginnings are going to be as well in that spring time period and what's going to set you off for the remainder of the year. So this can be a new work, a new job, something new changing in that 10th house sector, perhaps a brand new way people see you in the public for those of you involved in a public sphere. Whatever it is, there's new beginnings around that 10th house, new beginnings around work and career. So cultivate that from the spring to the fall time period. For the middle part of the year here, that's where there's going to be a lot of energy, I feel, for you guys. Cultivating that work, making it into more of a beneficial thing for you and others. And through that, naturally, there's going to be the culmination and in the fall time period in terms of how much that develops. And so for you guys, that's going to be in Virgo, which is your 4th house. So something is going to develop, and I think what it might be is something to do with the home family, the past, your roots, something of that nature. And maybe things shift there and you start to see that, things are going very well there. There's been, because you've been able to perhaps, do these work-related things or what have you, you've had the means and now you've developed something very nice in the home and family sector. Maybe things are going very well at the home. Maybe things are, maybe you have finances now, which enables you to perhaps make a move or, change the home environment to make it more comfortable for you. Those sorts of things. But that's just the predictive side of it. That's the effect. The cause is going to be from you really focusing on the work stuff, okay, the public stuff. So that's the emphasis. And I think by focusing on that, that's where there's going to be the fruits and also just the overall enjoyment and flow. But then in that fall time period, there's also new beginnings, okay? And so the new beginnings is in your guys' 3rd house. Okay, and this has to do with communications, with thoughts, with transportation on a short-term level. But overall, I think this has to do with probably you guys having a brand new perspective. Okay, because the 3rd house rules consciousness and understanding. Brand new understanding about life, or perhaps a brand new way of learning or communicating or teaching for those of you involved in the teaching side of things. With siblings as well as 3rd house related, perhaps a new relationship with your siblings. But whatever it is, the 3rd house newness, that new beginning in that sector is going to lead you guys into 2016. So for some of you, it might be writing a book. For some of you, it might be new production in terms of communications in some way. Starting a new class, a new study, something new there that's going to further along all of this transformation and change that's happening on your guys' path. So very nice. And use that time from fall onward to cultivate and develop whatever that third house new beginning is for you. So that's the overall energies in terms of the lunar cycle. Now let's go into more specifically where the transiting planets are taking place for you guys. And this is going to affect each of your individual charts, specifically in different areas. But overall, this will be the still a little more specific, but the overall theme. So starting with Jupiter, Jupiter is going to be shifting gears going into Leo in July time period. So up until July, he's going to continue his transit of your second house. Okay, and your second house, this is back in the second half of 2014 as well, is seeing the abundance in your life. You know, Jupiter transiting the second house is about expanding, receiving more abundance, seeing how there's infinite possibilities in terms of what you're worth, what you can get, what you can receive. You know, perhaps it's through your work, or perhaps it's just in general. And of course, this isn't just material like financial, it's all types of abundance. So continue for the first half of this year to just open up and be open to the endless possibilities of abundance coming to you. Be open to it. See the opportunities that are there and capitalize on it. Do something about it, because Jupiter by itself, you know, sometimes we can just, it comes easy and we don't do anything about it. So take that Saturn energy, which is the opposite of Jupiter, make something of it. You know, use the time to do that for the first half of the year. And you'll naturally, a lot of you will see a lot of abundance coming your way the first half of this year when you take that more proactive approach. Then in July, Jupiter goes into your third house. From that point onward, this can be, you know, it's very strongly associated with whatever this new beginning is in that third house. Teaching, communicating, something of that nature, writing. So whatever it is for you, you know, use the time from July onward to do the same thing, but with the third house. Communicate, speak, put your word out there, publish, you know, let people hear you. You know, Jupiter expands, and this is expanding your guys' communication sector. Also allow your mind to expand too. See the endless possibilities. See what you want to experience in life, and you'll have a clear vision of that. And again, just start taking those steps for the second half of the year to make that into a reality. So very nice, very positive. Also see how your positive thoughts from the second half of 2015 are, you know, creating that same reflection back in your external environment, because the third house has to do with our conscious, you know, intentions and projections, and what we're putting out reciprocates back. Notice that. And with Jupiter there, that can be very positive. You know, lots of abundance and manifestation there. Now let's go ahead. Oh, and by the way, Jupiter is going to be retrograde up until April. Okay, so use the time for the first 4 months of the year to reflect on how this abundance is coming to you, where it's coming from, how you can cultivate it more. Okay, and then from April onward, that's going to be much more active, in which the energies will be more in flow for you to put it into an external form. Okay. Now let's look at Saturn. Saturn is just recently actually changed signs back in 2014. And so he just entered your guys' sixth house, which has to do with your routine, your health, the day-to-day activities. Okay, with Saturn here, Saturn, you know, is often talked about in terms of limitation, but it's not. Saturn is about where we can put in hard work. Okay, and through that hard work we can receive, we can gain the fruits of that sector. Saturn always pays off, so to speak, where there's hard work. So for all of this year and into 2016 as well, put in the hard work to take care of your health, take care of your routine, continue to develop any crafts that you've been developing, and through that, naturally, it's going to ground you, and it's going to solidify a lot of these possibilities that Jupiter is bringing to you. Okay. So very important stuff, and you know, this is where you want to take this seriously. You want to take your health seriously. You want to exercise. You want to watch what you're eating. You want to, you know, just take care of yourself. And this is physical, mental, and spiritual health. Okay, and through that, naturally, you'll notice a tremendous amount of resilience that can come from that when you're taking care of yourself in that way. Also, organizing your routine, seeing how it's very important for you to have a consistent schedule, and when you do, or when you're more orderly, you get a whole lot more done. You're much more productive. Stuff like that. Okay, so focusing there on that sixth house will be very productive for you guys. Now let's talk about the very slow moving Saturn's going to be retrograde from March through August. So for the middle part of the year, use that time to really reflect on the, that sixth house related stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and look at Uranus. Uranus is transiting Pisces, which is your guys' 10th house. Okay, and this has been an ongoing thing. So this is going to continue to be the case in 2015, seeing the freedom in your guys' work. How can you bring more freedom into that? How can you be more of your authentic self through your work as well? And, perhaps this is not just work, but it's your career, it's public, anything you're doing to give back to society in some way. And bringing in a more of a dose of your true self into that and freedom into that is going to facilitate a lot of these changes. Okay, especially for the first few months of the year when we have the square up with Pluto, which I'll talk about. But for the whole year, just see that freedom, enjoy the freedom that you can have that's available to you when you make perhaps some changes in your work sector to facilitate that. Now, let's talk about Neptune and Chiron. They're both transiting Aquarius, which is your guys' 9th house. So perhaps there's, spiritualizing that's taking place in terms of your guys' life path. Seeing synchronicities, going with the flow. All of these sorts of things is facilitating a much peaceful and spiritual essence to you. Neptune in the 9th is serendipitously. It's like if you just go with the flow, you'll notice things are unfolding for you in divine timing and just the way they need to be. And trying to figure out exactly what our path is and which direction we're going in is counterproductive. It's counterintuitive. And the way to work with with Neptune is to just let go. Just release, surrender. And naturally the universe will then be able to guide you and allow you to flow into a certain direction. Now, in terms of Chiron there as well, you can find that very healing. And if there's any insecurities around it, it's just a temporary thing that's healing you, healing your connection to your path. So depending on your personal chart and where Chiron's aspecting, for some of you might be more than others, but in general, just be open to seeing whatever wounds you have in terms of your life path and just allow them to go and just release them. And naturally, do any healing work that you think might need to take place in that area. And that can be different for all of us in different ways. But in either case, I think a healing will continue with the life path this year. Now, in regards to Pluto, Pluto is very, very slow. And he's been transiting your guys' 7th house for a very long time. And this has to do with your changes to relationships, releasing attachments to relationships. And letting go of any old notions and old emotions regarding relationships in general, partnerships. This is obviously romance, but it's all relationships in your life, all partnerships, legal matters as well. But with this, it's about releasing attachments. Okay, again, a lot like Neptune going with the flow, but in this sense, it's like emotional conditioning. It's like emotional stuff that needs to be released about it, and it's really about just accepting how you feel, okay, and accepting, what's coming up with relationships and just accepting and then allowing them to go. Because you'll realize when you accept those feelings or those thoughts or whatever about that sector for you guys, there's, once you accept it, then they just want to go. The feelings, the thoughts, the old residue from past life and from early childhood, those sorts of things which are like gunk, they just want to go. They just want to be released. And so it just takes that acceptance, that unconditional love for yourself, essentially, and for other people in this sense, especially, will naturally allow all of that past life residue in terms of relationships to just go. So continue to do that this year, and you'll notice very, very powerful. It can have a tremendous amount of spiritual power by doing that with Pluto. All right, guys, so I'm going to now talk about more specifically these overall energies and how they're going to be relating up in the sky, okay, how they're going to be aspecting. Now, it starts with January. January is a very powerful month. Pluto is going to be squaring up to the north node. Uranus is going to be conjunct the south node. And we still have that Uranus-Pluto energy, that Uranus-Pluto square that's actually been going on for the past 2 years. And that square energy, now we're coming up to the final moment of it. It's in March. It's the final aspect. And so from January through March, really use this time to make whatever changes in your relationships. Okay, all that Pluto stuff I talked about, releasing there is going to facilitate some positive changes in your guys' work sector. Okay, and also, the more freedom that you guys gain in your work sector, the more it's going to facilitate changes in your relationships as well. So with the square energy, it's about balancing those two things and taking charge and making whatever constructive changes you need to make to facilitate both your freedom and your spiritual power. Okay, and January is no exception to that with the square with the North Node. You'll notice the more you do that, the more you step into the power, being the willing participant to make changes in your life. You'll notice things are nice and flowing for you, and they're going to be flowing very nicely in terms of your home and family sector, because that's where the North Node is. And just generally, when you guys, right now, this whole year, when you focus on the home, the family, and your past, your roots, and your emotional state, sharing more about your feelings, getting more in touch with your feelings, all of this stuff is very much in alignment, very much supportive for you all year. And if there's one thing you want to focus on that to simplify things. Just focus on how you can bring more emotion into your life, into your experiences, and also, do whatever changes that might need to be done in the home sector as well, or furthering any changes that have been taking place there. Now, that's going to be the overall energy, but in January, making changes in that home and family sector, or perhaps with your feelings, being ready to make some changes there, okay? Very strong, very powerful month. Also, in terms of releasing any notions of your work, in terms of how you think you might need to be or should be, January is the month to really release that as well, and you'll find a tremendous amount of freedom that will come from when you no longer feel like you have to be a certain way in the work sector, or that your work needs to be a certain way. This is about being your true self with your work, whatever you're doing for the public sector. And so January is a very freeing month that can come from that. Now March, like I said, that's the final Uranus-Pluto square. That's also when we have the eclipses, so very powerful month. And we also have Jupiter trining up to Uranus during that month as well. This has been an ongoing thing since September of 2014, and it's going to continue until June of 2015. So for this whole first half of the year, you're going to notice a tremendous amount of opportunities coming to you to bring more abundance into your life from being your true authentic self. And that's happening in the work sector. Okay, and your work sector is very much in alignment with your second house too. So perhaps bringing in more abundance from your work as well. It's going to be an ongoing theme for the first half of the year, but you have to do something about it, and you have to make changes, you have to adapt, and that's what Uranus is showing you, and Jupiter is showing you that there is possibilities, there is abundance when you make changes to that 10th house sector. So very nice, very positive energy. Now let's go ahead and jump to August. August, we're going to have Jupiter squaring up to Saturn, and this is very productive energy. It's taking the possibilities of perhaps the finances and the resources and making something solidified with it. And it has to do perhaps something to do with your 6th house, which is the work, the routine, the craft. Maybe taking some of these finances and, increasing your health with them, or creating your day-to-day environment to be more harmonious with you. But all in all, it's just a good synergy between these two, and it's essentially taking your innate skills, okay, that you have this abundance of right now. It's really coming out for you guys, these skills that you're born with, and making them into a craft, developing them into something. And really spend the time in August to really develop those crafts, those skills, increase your health, and I think a lot of the support's going to come from Jupiter there. So very nice. Now in September, when we have the eclipses, we're also going to have another set of aspects. Jupiter is going to be opposite Neptune, and Saturn is going to be sextiling up to the North Node. So in September, this is where it becomes increasingly important that you guys balance your resources, you might say, with the resources of others. Actually, let me back up. Sorry, it's not about the resources. It's about your communications, okay? And a lot of these changes that are happening to your path. Okay, so it's very important from the September onward time period, especially with these eclipses, that you balance whatever it is that you guys are now going to be sharing with the world in terms of your communication. All right, balancing the practical side of it with the philosophical side of it. It's very important that there's a harmony here that needs to take place. It seems like for some of you that, let's say, are going to be writing a book or getting more communicative or teaching or learning, it's mixing theory with practicality, the left side of the brain with the right side of the brain. Okay, and when you do that, when you balance those two, you'll naturally notice that's facilitating the process and helping you in that sector, whatever that is, whatever that new beginning is for you guys in that third house in particular. Now also in September, we have Saturn sextiling up to the North Node. So this is a month where you can really get a lot done, especially in terms of the home and family and those sorts of things, okay? And utilize that Saturn energy to really make those changes in that fourth house, okay, where the North Node is going to be transiting for you guys. It could be a very productive month as well. Anything that you choose to do, anything new that you started, especially around the September time period. Now in October, we have Jupiter trining up to Pluto, so this is actually very positive, especially for you guys' relationships and communicating through relationships, perhaps learning through your relationships. It's all very much in flow in terms of your third house of communicating and your seventh house of relationships. Very positive there. It's an opportunity there, perhaps learning from others and that sort of thing. And there's going to be, like I said, opportunities to expand, perhaps through being able to communicate to more people by making connections and those sorts of things. But it all comes from releasing any attachments that you have to that relationship sector that we talked about. Now in November, we have Jupiter opposite Chiron. And so this is again balancing that same energy. It's very important that in November you continue to balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain, the possibilities with practicality, all of this sort of stuff with the expansiveness with the finite. You know, the ninth house is expansiveness, infinite possibilities. And the third house is about taking it and making it practical. So very important that there's a balance with those two things, especially in November. Also in November, Saturn's going to be squaring up to Neptune. So this is an opportunity for all of us to get more grounded with our spirituality. And it's being more grounded with your guys' path, making whatever changes are necessary on your path in that November time period. And again, to your health. And perhaps this could be a month of really whatever strides, whatever achievements that you've made in that sixth house area, really putting that towards your path, whatever direction you want to move in. You know, in the ninth house, which is where Neptune is, also traveling, could be a month where you might feel like you want to, you know, make some changes to perhaps long distance matters or perhaps start doing some traveling or that sort of stuff. But in either case, it's going to take some action on your part, okay, whatever that is. And so just put it in. The action's available. Merge essentially your day-to-day activities, whatever you've been developing there, with the broad picture stuff of that ninth house. All right, guys, so I'm going to draw a card and see where Spirit would like a little more emphasis for this year for you guys. Okay, Pluto. Well, maybe that's an emphasis to talk a little bit more about Pluto. Now, Pluto is about death and rebirth. It's about changes, okay? And that's what's happening. It's essentially there's changes that are taking place in your guys' relationship. So it's about being willing to make changes and not to be attached to any particular relationship or any particular relationships. Through that non-attachment, through that willingness to make changes, there's going to be you're then in flow. You see, you're then in flow with the changes, and then you're wanting to make changes in that sector. So I think this is a reminder to step into that power that is Pluto, see how you can make changes in your relationship sector, and do it. This is the year to do it, especially for the first few months of the year. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great 2015. Please get in touch for a personal reading. Click the link on the following page for that. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys next time for my daily, weekly, and monthly horoscopes. Take care.